this month. Is this the toughest race in Europe?
We've been going out winning the whole night. It's been really uncomfortable.
Pressure and success at the 52 Super Series.
We're just hoping not to bogey it here. That's really the deal.
Plus, extreme views from a top skipper. But first, it was a big day for a very old trophy and a fresh start for some top teams. Winning the America's Cup brings responsibilities, not least creating the next event. And when Emirates Team New Zealand revealed the design for the new America's Cup boat, the sailing world stopped in its tracks. A 75-foot-long monohull with gecko-like arms and no keel. This was new territory for the sport. Some called it ambitious, others simply wacky. But the Kiwis were serious. And so too were the three teams that made official challenges for the oldest trophy in international sport. But the boat is only part of the big step forward for the 36th America's Cup. Although Auckland in 2021 will be the venue, the race course and format, along with the specific dates, were yet to be confirmed. Each has a big impact on how teams will plan their campaigns over the next 2 years. So when the Kiwi Cup holders announced a presentation of the latest details at the birthplace of the prestigious trophy, the America's Cup world turned up, including the 167-year-old trophy. Cowes on the Isle of Wight was the venue, the Royal Yacht Squadron the hosts, and all the big guns were together for the first time.
Welcome. Today we're celebrating the Overture of the 36th America's Cup, which has been in play for 167 years.
Well, it really marks a milestone. I mean, yes, we won the Cup over a year ago, and it's been running since, but we needed to mark the start as such. And what better place to come to than where it all began, 1851.
The Cup will be the 6th of March 2021 till the 21st of March. Now, where those dates sort of sit, or is they straddle 2 weekends, 1st to 7, so Saturday, Sunday, then a Wednesday, and then a Saturday, Sunday, and if it needs to continue, then it will continue on from that point. When the Cup was in New Zealand in 2000, before it left to that famous seafaring nation of Switzerland in 2003, it was a long way out, and so realistically, unless you're watching it on TV or on a boat, you couldn't see it. So we wanted to be able to be viewed from the shore. And in that natural amphitheatre, that's actually Auckland Harbour, one of those courses. So those of you who know Auckland Harbour, you can see it from a lot of places. There's a thing called North Head, where you can shoot right down onto the boats. Bastion Point, you could probably get, I would suggest, on the shore, 300,000 people to watch a race. And that was really important to both ourselves and the Challenge of Record to create that environment.
The significance of what happened today is Team New Zealand just announced the course, which is quite a big deal as a competitor. It gives you the opportunity to know really what you're designing for.
Races tend to sort of start 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon normally. But again, those who know Auckland, we're a narrow island, and in the summer you get 2 opposing sea breezes and you end up with a dead zone. So we're moving it to later in the day. A 30-minute race with, say, a 3 or 4 minute pre-start, and we want to be in and out in 2 hours from a TV point of view. That's why we're running it later in the afternoon.
The Challenger Record, Luna Roadster, the defender Team New Zealand, they're really writing the script for this event, and we've got to try and keep pace with them and adjust our programme, adjust our strategy as we get that key information.
Talking of challenges, is there any room for anybody else?
Yeah, there's 4 teams that right now could make it, and they ain't sitting in this room.
Okay.
And they're real. I think it is our responsibility to now work with those teams to try and make it easy for them to make it.
I think it's an important day for the Cup. I know everyone was expecting more team. I'm pretty confident there will be a few more coming in the next couple of weeks, and it's day one basically of this era, of this new campaign, of this new America's Cup, and I think there is a lot of excitement. I think I never saw so many journalists in the last few years for a press conference of the America's Cup, so I think that is already a great result.
But while all three challengers have been busy in their design offices, only one has been getting to grips with the new concept on the water.
We've been out in our 28-foot T5, as we call it, test boat, and that's been really invaluable for us to get out in this new concept of boat, see how it performs, both from a sailing perspective, but probably more importantly for the designers to see how the boat performs, to be able to feed back to our design programs, our simulation programs. When we slow down or we lose control of the foils, then inevitably we seem to end up swimming around. So thankfully we purchased some dry suits at the beginning of the summer, and they've been very useful. All of the teams have been out there watching us. There's no reconnaissance rules, so there's nothing we can do about that. But for sure the learning is for us is first hand, and we'll make developments from that and use that. And the others, to a certain extent, are still guessing what we've learned, what we're up to, and what's coming next.
So when will the new boats appear?
The first of the next protocol things is the launching date, which is March next year. No one's going to launch in March next year. Well, we'll see. We're not going to launch in March next year. And everybody has to do the first regattas, or all the regattas actually, but they're in September next year. So you'll see boats, my guess is you'll start seeing boats in the spring. And then there'll be a bit of a flurry, of PR, etc. as boats are launched. And that's really where it goes now is, you're heading into winter here in the Northern Hemisphere.
From holograms to a who's who of America's Cup celebrities, the 167-year-old trophy had made a flying visit back to its spiritual home. The 36th America's Cup cycle was officially underway. There are few racecourses in the world with so many potentially dangerous corners. Start Point, Land's End, Mizzen Head and Muckle Flugger are just a few along the UK's jagged coastline. Yet these are some of the key points that make up the course for the Sevenstar Round Britain and Ireland race. Add in volatile weather, along with some of the strongest and most complex tidal flows in the world, and you have a race with a fearsome reputation around an unrelenting course. In the last two editions, the organisers had to reverse the 1,800-mile route shortly before the start to prevent the fleet from barrelling headlong into advancing storms.
Because it's so tough, we run it every 4 years. So it's much tougher than a typical transatlantic race. And that's what the attraction is. So we have a record entry this year. We've got 26 boats.
From fully crewed to double-handed, from professional to entirely amateur, Grand Prix to traditional. The race attracts a wide range of sailors and boats. Among the Grand Prix entries that lined up was a fleet of Class 40s. Designed for high-speed passages offshore, these 40-foot pocket rockets eat up the miles. A total of 12 had entered this race. Among them, Paralympic sailor Hannah Stodel. She had chartered Région Normandie and was using the race as a stepping stone towards an even bigger goal.
Aiming to be the first disabled person to sail the Vendée Globe, so yeah, it's quite a big plan, a big dream. The timing's right, with sailing being dropped for the Paralympics, which is obviously heartbreaking. It's the right time to show it can be done, and it's not just about the Vendée Globe, it's about the bigger picture. If I can inspire some other disabled people to take on massive challenges, then brilliant, and that would be my whole campaign made.
Among others who had their eyes on the prize, Phil Sharp and his crew on Immery's Clean Energy. As the reigning Class 40 champions, Sharp's team has been on the podium every time this year. But while they're good in a straight line across an ocean, in this race they would need to be good at turning corners too.
We've got some good results under our belt this year, but this race is going to be a lot more tough than the other 3 races of the championship we've competed in. We've got about 3 boats that we're going to be worried about during this race, and I'm sure will be presenting us some strong competition. 2 of those are quite new boats, one brand new, much more powerful design than us, so we're going to have some good intense competition to deal with.
It didn't take long for Sharp's views to be confirmed.
Although we got out the Solent first, the Mach 3 of Nicola Trousseau Coram overhauled us, so they're about 1.5 miles ahead.
But Sharp's team hung in.
We are at the Scilly. first corner of Britain. Right alongside us is what's turning out to be our nemesis for the race, the one and only Coram, which is a very, very nice sign indeed, because we've had a battle with them all of last night and today. They got a lot of ground on us today, but we've managed to claw our way back into it. And we've got the edge at the moment in the light airs.
36 hours later, as conditions changed, the advantage started to shift.
Well, we've been pushing very hard last night. We sailed the length of Ireland, and in these awesome downwind conditions, Imerys has just been absolutely flying along. So really pleased to take the lead. We passed Coram very close last night.
But the breakneck pace proved too great as Imerys blew out a spinnaker.
We have a lot of damage to repair. The taper's basically removed from the whole height of the spinnaker, and it's basically a major repair job. The question is whether we can repair it in time, but we're going to give it a go.
Yeah.
We're just going to dry it first, hang it up. You see, this is part of the torn edge. We got everything throwing on this. We basically put epoxy on it, Dacron, Mylar. So yeah, here is the join, and we're going over it with these strips. And then lastly, we're putting a Mylar strip parallel to the join, which is actually really sticky.
After a day spent repairing the sail, their hopes were that the boat would now be back up to full speed.
We hoisted it just after dark, and to our dismay, the whole thing ripped apart straight away after all that work. So we had no choice but to go back to our original, very small Code 5. But we were very pleased to see that we, this morning, hadn't lost any distance at all on the other boats.
Meanwhile, on board Région Normandie, the opening days had been a baptism of fire.
This is a tough start to around Britain and Ireland, I'm not going to lie. We're, I would say, enjoying it in the loosest sense. We're loving the challenge, but we're looking forward to it turning and going downwind this afternoon, I must say.
Feels like we're in second day of our full cycle now, and it feels quite good, and we're sort of making some adjustments as we go, aren't we?
We're learning as we go, which is the biggest thing for us. We're all quite new to this, and we're definitely learning from our mistakes, I must say.
But at the front of the fleet, Imerys was approaching the top of the course, and there was drama in store. Join us after the break. Coming up, pressure in Puerto Portals at the 52 Super Series. And a candid view of the state of play in the Extreme Sailing Series. But first, we rejoin the 1,800-mile race around Britain and Ireland at a crucial stage.
Well, the moment has arrived, and we're about to pass the most northern point in the British Isles.
95.
Muckle Flugger, it's just there. This is a pretty barren place. Either of you want to come and set up shop here?
But as Imerys rounded the notorious headland, Coram had retired with a damaged rudder after colliding with a shark. The crew were safe. Now it was Concise, skippered by Jack Trigger, that was Imerys' closest competitor.
Really relieved to have got around there in first place though. Concise is behind us, 15, 16 miles away. We're just going to try and extend if we can.
But the weather was starting to build again.
But it's going to be a long old night. We've got some quite windy night ahead of us, with a big low of Scotland that the rest of the fleet are probably going to be fighting against.
Stodle's crew were in the thick of it.
This is pretty on the edge, I would say. On the edge.
How much wind have we got?
We've had, we're maxed out at 52. We're averaging around 35, 40 at the moment. Vinton's doing a stellar job of keeping us all alive. But we are heading south, so the good news is good.
At the front of the fleet, conditions were also tough.
So it's a wet morning in the North Sea. We've been going upwind the whole night. It's been really bloody uncomfortable. The boat's been slamming. It's just really hard enough staying standing on the deck.
Eventually, the storm passed through, but Imerys had taken a pounding.
As you can see, the radar is not in a good shape at the moment. There's no cover on the radar anymore. So that's one of our several problems on board, because now we don't have any more wind information. So we are sailing like traditional sailors. Just feel the wind in your hair and go for it.
On the plus side, the finish was drawing closer.
Well, last night's sea, and we're quite excited because we can actually have a chance of seeing the white cliffs of Dover in front of us.
18 hours later, as Imerys approached the finish line in Cowes, they were not only about to take line honours, but Sharp's four-man crew that included Julian Pouvet, Pablo Santurde and Sam Matson would enter the record books with a new Guinness World Record. Completing the 1,800-mile course in just over 8 days, they'd taken 15 hours off the previous record for yachts of under 40 foot.
This has been a dream finish to what was a very tough race, and I think that made it all the more incredible finishing the race, because I mean a race like this is it's probably the toughest in Europe. It's very much a race of attrition, as we've seen in this edition. There's been a lot of boats that have just struggled to finish. So the fact we're here is great, but the fact we've actually managed to do what we set out to achieve by winning and then taking the world records is fantastic, and it hasn't really sunk in yet.
It was the penultimate 52 Super Series event of the season. The pressure was building.
I enjoy the pressure. That's why I'm here, and that's why I still do the Olympics, because if I don't have the pressure, it's hard to get into the boat.
You feel pressure all the time in this circuit and in this venue because it is so unpredictable.
No breeze on the opening day in Puerto Portals, Mallorca proved this. But when racing did get underway on day 2, it was Platoon that led the charge. Once again, winning was anyone's game, with 3 different teams taking the opening 3 races. As winning margins have become tighter, so performance analysis has become a crucial part of any TP52 campaign. Each team has a slightly different approach, but all have coaches. In this field, Takashi Okura's sled team have one of the world's leading lights, Rod Davis.
The perfect team setup is a really complicated thing because for each team there's a different combination that needs to work. Really, the common theme across it is having a team that can communicate well together, and there are no egos or no defensive shields go up when you sit and have a debriefing. So one of the rules that we use in the debriefing is you can say anything you want, but it's got to be followed by why you think that. And that's a way of breaking down a little bit of the tension. This season, because Mr. Okura comes in late, just before the practice races, I steer the boat in all the tune-ups, which works pretty well because I can give direct feedback of the setup and how it feels on the helm and coach from on board the boat rather than off the boat. So that works well. Our program is to prepare the boat and the team 100% so that when Mr. Okura comes, then we coach him, and that's really my job in the whole thing, is the one-on-one coaching with Mr. Okura and then obviously the afterguard. We're having a good season so far. We're just hoping not to bogey it here. That's really the deal.
2 wins suggested they were on the right track, but 4 results at the back of the fleet brought their overall score down. Instead, it was Quantum Racing that managed to hang on to their overall lead by the end of the regatta by just 3 points to take their 2nd win in a row. For owner-driver Doug DeVos, the victory was his first at the helm, suggesting that he had mastered the pressure.
you don't think about the stress, but it's an amazingly stressful thing where you're just like, wow. You know, and that's at every position. Everybody's doing that. You just never know in this fleet, right? No lead is safe. Everyone is still working on it, focusing on it, so we're going to have it full on, I'm sure, right to the end.
Next stop, Valencia for the final showdown of the 2018 52 Super Series. When the Extreme Sailing Series hit Cardiff, it was a bruising affair. Strong winds, big gusts, tight courses, and hot competition. With 2 events left and 5 teams capable of winning, the competition is getting even tougher as the pressure continues to build. Oman Air skipper Phil Robertson gives a candid assessment of the racing and his team's performance, the challenge of foiling, and how the Extreme Sailing Series might affect other areas of the sport.
Lingy and SAP, they've been the form team so far this season, but we've sort of been sitting around third, and we've got Ineos Rebels and also Red Bull sort of nipping at our heels. And I think probably the most impressive is the young guys on Ineos Rebels that have made a massive step this year. Had some ups and downs for sure, and it's been a bit of a challenge, to be honest. We've come into the season obviously off the back of a third last year and really put all our eggs in the basket to come and win this year, and we've been pretty fired up for that, and hasn't quite gone to plan. We've sort of been sitting around third, got a couple of seconds and more thirds, but never won an event. The ESS is a pretty unique sort of, I guess, style of sailing, and basically what they've done is put the fastest boats on the smallest race courses. So for instance, we've got roughly 6 seconds here from bearing away at the top mark onto the foils into a foiling jibe, and for the guys to keep up it's pretty tough. So we're learning fast. I think the biggest thing that's going to filter down is the knowledge of how to sort of manoeuvre a boat on a short course and effectively and efficiently by the crew, and that's sort of filtering down pretty quickly, and for sure the guys sailing on the ESS are pretty valuable when it comes to foiling boats elsewhere in the sport. I would say sort of the bear away into a quick foiling jibe, that's really difficult thing to do, and for the crew to keep up and keep ahead of the boat is quite difficult. So as I said before, you sort of have 6 seconds to go from 15 knots to 30 knots, and you've got to sort of reduce all the rakes off the foils that you're flying on, and then drop the new board and get straight into a jibe, and to move everyone across the boat within 6 seconds and do everything correctly at the same time is a very hard manoeuvre to pull off. So that's where the gains are made, and that's what we're trying to perfect.
Next month, we find out how one man will handle the Atlantic and his giant foiling try, Gitana 17, alone.